Hello and welcome to yet another video where I'm doing nothing really productive. This video is inspired by a couple of videos I've seen. I will say the most recent inspiration, I was watching Emily from Novel Novels and she did a tag that was, why haven't I read these books on my TBR? And she was using those books as like a current TBR of like, I need to prioritize these. So I thought about doing that tag and then I was like, I'd rather just make a TBR for the next 6 months. And this is something that Abby of Pelennor does. She calls it like her books are expiring or something, because if she doesn't read them after like a year or whatever, then she has to unhaul them. I will not be doing that because I don't like to unhaul things that I haven't read. So I'm not even going to try to lie to myself. These are just books that I need to prioritize that have been on my TBR a long time. 7 of them have been on my TBR for 4+ years at this point. 3 of them are a little more recent, but they're mostly like old books and books that I probably won't pick up without a push. Like, not because I don't think I'll enjoy them, but just the kind of books that like I probably won't pick them up if I don't give myself a good reason. So I'm gonna say like 6 months. Let's check back in March, see how I've done. If I haven't read them, nothing bad will happen. I will just be disappointed in myself, which, let's be real, is the worst punishment. So I have 10 books here, technically 13, but there's a 4-book series, so I'm kind of counting that as like 1, because I usually read books in series as like a unit together. So let's talk about these books that have been on my TBR for a very long time and why I haven't read them, because again, they've been on my TBR for a very long time. We're gonna start with a classic because realistically, I buy classics to have them, and because I do like intend to get into reading classics and I just don't read them. I don't know. But this one in particular, I've wanted to read for a lengthy period of time, and I almost like, I've put it on TBRs, I think I have, and I've like intended to read Dracula by Bram Stoker. Yeah. Haven't ever read it. Keep meaning to. I know people who love this book, just like absolutely adore it, and it's like, why haven't I read it? Why? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I just haven't. So, yeah. I put off classics forever and ever. Like, I just don't pick them up, which is silly because I quite enjoy a lot of the classics that I read. And the biggest complaint I hear about this book is that it's slow and boring. And those are always things that I'm like, ooh, this sounds like a book for me. So very interested in this. Like, I want to love it. This is one of those books that like, I feel like there's a very good chance I will love. So moving on, we're not going to do the series next. Let's go with Agatha Christie. I have never, ever in my life read an Agatha Christie book or watched a TV show or watched a movie. Like, I feel like I'm missing like a huge part of the culture here. I have a fair number of Agatha Christie books on my shelves that I just bought and like left. I don't know. So I picked one kind of at random, but also one that like I recognized. So hopefully it's not a terrible place to start, but also I don't know. It's a Miss Marple book. That is, they do it with mirrors. I know Dane from Dane Cobain really loves the Miss Marple series. I think she's like his favorite of the Agatha Christie books. So hopefully this is a good place to start, but I have no idea. But I've never read Agatha Christie and I need to read Agatha Christie. Like, I have a bunch of her books. I was gonna start with 1, Murder on the Orient, and then I was told maybe not the ideal place to start, so I'm gonna start with this. We're gonna read this book and see how we feel about Agatha Christie, and then we're gonna read the other 5 books of hers that I own, because I already own them, and I'm gonna read them anyway. Hopefully I like her. And then I have a book that I was supposed to buddy read with someone, like, years and years ago. Oh, this should have been on my last TBR from a couple months ago because it has a bookmark in it. Whoops. I did say in that TBR there were probably more floating around. This is a pretty bookmark too, and I haven't seen it in God knows how many years at this point. But this was like the beginning of booktube for me. A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. I hear amazing things about John Irving. I've heard good things about A Prayer for Owen Meany. I did read the first like 36 pages of it when I was supposed to be buddy reading it with someone I don't even remember, but I will be starting this over. Yeah, I hadn't realized there was a bookmark in this. I should have put this on my like July TBR or June or whichever TBR it was, where I read books I'd started and never finished. Whoops. But I just never got into it. Like, I never read it far enough to like get invested in the story, and I just got distracted and never read it. But I've heard good things. I don't even know what it's about. There's no description on the back. Oh no, wait, there is. It's tiny. If you see in between all the quotes, there's like 3 lines of description of this book. So helpful. He believes he is God's instrument. And he is. It's his most comic novel. I think that's why I've been putting it off. I don't really do comedy very well, and if it's John Irving's most comic novel, that's concerning. But I do have another John Irving book on my TBR, so I need to read this in order to like get it off my TBR. Okay, let's go with the series since that's on top. I'm counting this as one, like I said, so there are like 10 things overall, but this is technically 4 books. And that is the Echo Company series by Ellen Emerson White. Technically, like, she used the pen name Jack Emerson for these in order for them to sell better, I assume, but yeah, they're books about Vietnam. Just about one Echo Company in Vietnam. It's about a group of guys. I assume that group of guys. And they're, I think, middle grade books. Middle grade or like younger YA, maybe just YA, I don't know. But they're about Vietnam. She's written other books about Vietnam that I've read because she wrote some of those middle grade historical fiction diaries, and 2 of them are about Vietnam. And I really like those, and I like the way she writes about Vietnam. So hopefully these are good. I'm always afraid to pick up her books because like, I love her so much and I love her books so much that I always worry going in my expectations are going to be too high and I'll be disappointed by anything that isn't absolutely amazing. But like, because she's my favorite author and I love her and I've loved everything she's written, so it's like I haven't been disappointed by her, but I always worry. Like, I worry a lot. Yeah, and also I was talking to her once and she just low-key dropped the fact that her favorite book she's ever written was The Road Home. And then she asked if I had ever read it. And I was like, no, just kill me right now. So The Road Home is a companion / sequel to these, which this conversation was like 3 years ago and I've still not read any of these. Like, I immediately went out and bought them, but I haven't like read any of them, so I need to read these because I feel like I'm disappointing her by not reading them, even though she has no idea. We've had like one conversation ever, and it kind of broke my soul. Oh, I just realized I was about to leave all of my nonfiction books at the very bottom, so let's get into those. The Boys of My Youth by Joanne Beard. This is nonfiction, creative nonfiction. I like it. It's memoir / essays, which always sounds good to me because I like people who are like pretentious enough to call what they do essays when it's like just a memoir. Like, it is a memoir, they just call it essays instead, and it's like, that's my vibe. This is basically like the premise. I mean, it's her memoir, but like the focal point is the fact that the boys of her youth are like moving and constantly like there are new ones, and then the fixed points of her life are the women, like her cousins, her friends, her sister, her mother. Like, so that's kind of like the premise, I believe. But I do like me some creative nonfiction, so I will probably enjoy this. Here's hoping. Fingers crossed. I have actually no idea because I've never seen anyone read this. And then another, ooh, this book is hella water damaged. That's unfortunate. That's fine. I don't really care. Another author who writes middle grade historical fiction diaries, Susan Campbell Bartoletti. She wrote The Coal Miner's Bride, among potentially others. I don't know, but I read that recently, and I knew when I saw this book, I was like, I recognize that name. This is The Boy Who Dared. It's historical fiction about a boy who was in Hitler's youth. I think it's based on a true story, but I don't know like how closely. This is middle grade. I think he's like super gung-ho into Hitler's youth at first, and then he sort of realizes that like, this is maybe not a good thing. Are we the baddies? And then, yes. So this is not on my TBR. I have this book marked as read on my shelf, but I don't remember reading it, so I'm pretty sure I haven't. But I'm gonna read it. We'll see. I might have read it. I don't know. If I have, then I'll probably be unhauling it just because like I don't remember it, but I feel like I haven't. So we're gonna read this. That's why this is here, because I was like, I didn't think I'd read it, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll read it and see. I like me some middle grade. Like, it's short. It'll take me like an hour and a half. What's the harm? More nonfiction. Kennedy by Ted Sorensen. This is a biography of Kennedy. What more is there to say? Actually, a lot. When I was in high school, I was a weird kid. Let's just put that out there. Not that that's surprising to anyone, I'm sure, but like, I was a weird kid. So I was at the library just browsing random nonfiction, and there was a book called Counselor, written by Ted Sorensen in the nonfiction section. So I was like, sure, I'll read this. I like lawyer stuff. And it wasn't a lawyer thing. But it was Ted Sorensen's memoir, or autobiography, I guess, which I actually own now. I bought it. I love that book so much. He was one of Kennedy's advisors, and like, he adored Kennedy, and it was like really interesting and really well written, and like one of my favorite autobiographies that I'd read, and like, it was really, really fascinating. So I'd heard that he wrote a book about Kennedy called Kennedy, so I was really curious to read that. It was just like one that I never had access to, so then I bought it like a couple of years back. But my worry with this book is that I don't care anymore, you know? Like, I feel like I might not ever pick it up, because like, when I loved Counselor, Ted Sorensen's other book, like I really wanted to read this book, that was like 12 years ago. Like, I was 16. Yeah, so I have this on here because I feel like I really need a push to read it, because I don't know how much I do really care anymore, and I also don't know if I will enjoy this the way that I did as a 16-year-old. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, like, I feel like this is one that could very easily just sit on my shelf forever, because like, do I care about Kennedy biographies anymore? Not so much, but like, we'll see. Hopefully it does still like spark that love that I had as a child. Maybe. I don't know. Almost done. Tana French, The Likeness. This is her second book. I have another one of her books on my shelf too. It's like, you can see it in frame. It's like over here somewhere. This one. That's another Tana French book. That was originally going on this list, and then I realized that I have this, which is the second one, so I should probably just read them in order since I have the order. Not that they're related, I don't think, but you know. Here's the thing with Tana French. She's very popular, and I read her first book, In the Woods. It was called In the Woods? Was it called In the Woods? That's praise for the likeness. Can we praise for her first book? I don't know. Okay, it doesn't matter. Whatever that book was called. Why am I always a mess? That book I had some problems with as I was reading it, but it was fine until I got to the end. And that book had the least amount of closure that I've ever seen in any thriller book. I have never read a more unsatisfying ending in any thriller ever in my entire life, and possibly in any book ever that I have ever read in my entire life. Like, I read this book it must have been like 7 years ago, maybe 8. I don't, probably 7. It was probably right after I left school, so 7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago, and I'm still so mad about it. Like, that is a book that I haven't gotten over. Like, I'm still so mad. Just like, who does that? Who writes a book like that? And I don't want to say anything because I don't want to, like, it's a thriller. I don't want to talk about the ending, but like, if you have read that book, you know. So I kind of bought these anyway, like years and years ago, and I just never read them. Like, they sound really interesting, but I'm so afraid of the ending, and I'm so afraid that it's just gonna be as awful as In the Woods. Like, I don't know how you write a mystery book and then don't even discuss the mystery. Like, that book just, like, that book weighs on my soul. Like, I still just lie awake in the middle of the night thinking about it sometimes, because, like, who does that? Like, why on earth would you write a book and then just... That book upsets me still to this day. So I'm going into this with a lot of trepidation. I'm going to try not to care about anything because I don't know that we'll get anything from it. But I want to read it because I own it. Like, I bought it for a reason. I was curious. I did like her writing style. I didn't love her main character. He was kind of a sexist pig, but like, also I read it like 7 years ago, so I don't know if that was intentional and I just missed it because, again, when I was younger, sometimes I miss those things. But this has a female lead and I liked her writing style, and maybe this will be a better book. Maybe. Yeah, but I'm going into this one with a lot of concerns, and I'm prepared to just be so angry at it. Driven by Dane Cobain. Back to Dane. Since I talked about him with Miss Marple and Agatha Christie, I have had this book for a good minute on my shelf, and he's written, like, I think he's on like his 3rd book of the series or something by now, and I still haven't read this one. Why? The reason why is because I'm so afraid of reading indie authors, and I'm so afraid of reading booktube authors specifically and not liking their book, because I like Dane quite a bit, but like, what if I don't like his book? He probably will not care, but I will care deeply, and it will bother me. So I've had this on my shelf and just haven't picked it up, and I just need to force myself through it. I read Kay McLeod's books. Well, I've started them. I'm almost done with the 2nd one now, and she's not a booktuber, but booktube related. So I have managed to get through those, and I figure this will be my next indie project. Get through this. If I like it, buy the rest of the books in the series. Yeah, I'm just nervous. This is a mystery. I don't really know what about. There's a private detective and a computer whiz kid and a good-natured cop, which just sounds good. Like, I like mystery books. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, that I enjoy this. It's just one that makes me nervous because, like, I just want so badly to love indie books and be like, I don't know, pushing my indie favorites on everyone, but I'm just so picky about books that I don't want to, like, be the negative voice about indie ones that have so few voices already. It might not bother the authors, but it bothers me. So yeah, I'm trying to read more indie books though, just like slowly, little by little. We'll see. But this gets such good reviews by like everyone, so here's hoping that I love it. And then the last book, because I need to go drink some water because my voice is dying, even though this video has not been all that long. The End of the Twins, a memoir of losing a brother by Saul Diskin. I started this. I don't have a bookmark in it because I think I gave up very, very quickly. Not because it was bad. I just got distracted. But this is a memoir. Like I said, it's nonfiction. It's about a guy who has a twin, and when they're in adulthood, the twin gets diagnosed with leukemia, and it's about like his battle and eventually his death from leukemia. And they'd been like estranged since they were in their 20s just because they were very different people. Like, I don't know, it sounds interesting. It sounded very interesting. I got it from the book fair when I just randomly picked up a bunch of books for cheap like years and years ago, because I used to go to this giant book fair that was nearby, which was amazing. I don't go anymore, it's complicated. too long of a story for this video because it's not relevant, but this book sounded interesting. I like memoirs. I like stories like this about people I don't know who are just like talking about one aspect of their lives. And this sounds so interesting. Like, it's about his twin, who you obviously have that special relationship with, but also he's estranged from. And now the twin is dying, and it seems really fascinating. I haven't picked it up since that time I tried to read it, like years and years ago. It wasn't bad, I just don't remember. I just got distracted, I think, but I would like to read it. Yeah, I would like to read all of these, so that is my list. I have owned most of these books for a very long time, so hopefully this will be my push to really like get through them. I'm saying 6 months for this, but that's kind of like a soft time limit. If it takes me longer, if it takes me less, I figure I'll come back in 6 months and like check in and maybe do what Abby does and just like do another one of these videos. Hello, Spleen. Would you like to be in the video? I don't know. We'll see if I like this. I know I just said in my last video that I wasn't going to do a TBR for next month, but like maybe I'll do this instead of TBRs. Like, just do something like, I want to read these 10 books in the next 6 months and like give myself the flexibility. Like, I could sit down and read them all at once, or I could just like do what I please. I like that. I do not think there's going to be a Spleen in this video. She's in the window enjoying herself. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.